Hello and welcome to another thrilling and exciting episode of Confused with Mona and Julian. I was momentarily confused myself there. So, Mona, we are looking this week at the relevance of communications and making sure that your communications are relevant with the times we're in. As we're currently enjoying, most of the world is enjoying an enforced period of leave, and working from home, or on the other hand, waiting for work to return, we have to look at the issue of how relevant communications are and keeping them within the bounds of relevance for your audience. So, Mona, how would you define the relevance issue?
Absolutely. The word relevance now is more important. So what does it actually mean? Does it mean that we suddenly start giving advice about things that we are not we don't have any insight or expertise on? No, I think we all have to be relevant in our own roles as leaders leading this change, or even as anybody who's involved in the current, and this impacts everybody who's involved in this current environment. So relevance really means is, how do you think about responding to the world's concerns right now? What's going on? What are the opinions that are there? What are the issues that are there? And how do you adjust your response according to that? So that's the meaning of the word relevance. It's not about coming up with this. It's not about coming up with this and deflecting people's emotions or ideas at this stage. Everybody's in this period of unknown, where they're thinking, don't know what next, don't know what's next. And to be relevant means to be acknowledging that change and saying, that's fine. People right now, we don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. Nobody knows out there. Nobody wants to predict because we don't know which way this goes. So how do we handle and respond in a manner that it kind of applies to this change that's been going around? That's the meaning of the word relevance.
So one of the interesting things, for example, I found was how there's an awful lot of companies out there who are expanding on and telling us all what they're doing for themselves. So, we're ensuring that all our people have hand sanitizers, and that we're ensuring that all our people who come into work are looked after, and all of that stuff, which is great, and which is what you'd expect a business to do. So that ticks a box. But the question is are they communicating to their customers about what they're doing for their customers? And being aware of the difficulties that their customers may be experiencing, or the changes. Sometimes I think I've seen examples of these communications coming out of companies which are great, and you can see they're inward focused, but they're not looking out and talking about their wider stakeholders, to use a better word. They're looking just internally at this time.
Obviously, and I mean, our inboxes are inboxes are full of emails from each of these, be it the local shopping mall, or be it a larger company, or any of the online subscriptions that we have. Now, what I've started to see a pattern since Monday is I'm getting the same looking email with a different header and footer from all of them. All of them. None of them are going in there and changing, because this also shows, as a brand, or when you communicate, you kind of want to revert back to those templates. And I think in one of the earlier podcasts we covered about the fact, when you want to convey a message, don't just fall on the, and I can truly empathize that it'll be so hard even for the businesses and the teams and everyone. I'm in the same position right now. Like, how do you come up with this idea that conveys the message exactly? All those emails are stating the obvious, and by now we are in the fourth day. Well, technically in Australia this all started since Monday. it started to take really shape in a different way since Monday. But
Mm.
all those messages are exactly the same. So in my fourth, fifth day of the week, I'm reading those messages and I'm like, what? You know what? I'm not interested in listening whether you're sanitizing or not, which is good if you're doing it, great. But tell me what happens to minimize the impact for me as a customer. What are
Mm.
those steps? Where is this go? And if you don't know, say don't know. That's
Yes.
fine, because
Yeah.
that feels to me that you're at least listening. And I mean, it's good to state the obvious. We all now know kind of this is where it is. But as a business and a brand, there are some out there who've actually changed their there was one brand that has changed it, and they've very beautifully done it, where they're saying stores are still open, but we completely appreciate the option that you don't want to come in, and we will be able to provide A, B, and C services online and in this manner. We will be
Mm.
getting in touch with you with all the logins and things that you need. You don't need to do anything. We will get in touch with you for these services. And you
Yeah.
can do all of that. Failing which, if you're not able to do that, our staff will be on the phone to help you guide through it. So
Yeah.
at least there you feel that there is some sort of they're working through this. Like, I know what they're doing to keep their staff employed and everything. That is great, but they're working through this. And some of the smaller ones, like bless my local pharmacy, they've said if you order before 12 noon, we'll deliver all your medications and leave it out to your door
Mm.
on the same day. And yes, they'll charge me whatever a fee to deliver. Fine, charge me. That's fine. You're giving me
Yeah.
a service, and yeah, I'm not going to beat around the fact right now. But the fact that you're actually, rather than just saying that we're doing A, B, and C and that's it. Well, how do I order my medication? Or how do I do this? How do I do that? No, they've actually gone ahead that next step. They're being relevant. They're thinking like the customer. Yes, we all need things from our pharmacies or local shopping markets or whatever that is. They're thinking on that next step where how do we make this easy? How do we remove this gap and friction?
Exactly right. And I think one of the interesting things you mentioned to me the case of Zoom the other day, where the CEO
Yeah.
was on the phone and who then immediately went and said, OK, we're going to offer educational establishments links and whatever free. The interesting thing is where you see the businesses being responsive is where their CEOs and their management are actually involved in the day-to-day activities of the business. And you can sense this with the
Yeah.
way that they communicate. Businesses where they live for the service, where they live for their customers,
Yeah.
are actually responding. Businesses where they live for themselves and where the first thought is internal is, interestingly enough, that's where they're beginning to send out stuff about how good they are, rather than thinking, okay, I expect you to give your staff hand sanitizer. That's a basic thing. But what are you doing for your customers? It comes back to that point that sometimes this is where the management can show up that they're out of touch with their business because they don't understand the pressures on their own customers. Where are the banks? It's interesting. Marks and Spencers in the UK sent out an email, and they actually said Marks and Spencers Bank are aware of the misfortunes, and we can help. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know whether customers of the big four banks in Australia have received that sort of message from their banks, where they're actually realizing that their customers are in pain rather than focusing on the fact that they've got hand sanitizers. It's it's thinking. It's this is where humanity within organizations is going to be really important, and communicating
Yeah.
that humanity to the audience as well.
Yeah, and I think each one of us, as a business, as an individual, as a leader, we all, how do we simplify this issue? It's getting complex day by day, but where is our part playing in making it simplifying in this, so that it becomes easier to kind of break down into parts and absorb? Because otherwise,
Mm.
we're just adding one more bit to that never-ending complexity, where it's like, oh, we need to do one, two, and three. We've done one, two, and three. The rest is not our responsibility, or rest is too hard to think about right now. Uh, no, we all need to, in our roles, think about what to do next. Now, there are some brands who have not responded to this completely or in any shape or form, And I won't go ahead and name any brands here, but at the same time, their their followers are kind of asking them, "You've been eerily quiet about this. What's going on? What are your plans?" And you can see people want that communication. They want to hear what what are the steps you're taking as a brand, as such a large business, to minimize this, or to minimize that impact. And there's only collectively we'll be able to minimize this impact. Individually, none of us will be able to do it. It's only collectively right now we'll be able to minimize the impact on ourselves, on our businesses, on our communities. And this is why the word relevance is really important, because how do we make sense of this, all that's going around the subject and the issue? How do we observe? How do we listen? And then how do we change and come back with something that is more useful?
Yep. Well, one thing we can guarantee is this is going to be an ongoing and evolving process. And I don't think there'll be changes and other things happening in the weeks and months ahead, no doubt. Anyway,
Yes.
Thank you for that, Mona. I think that's the end of this issue of Confused. See you again soon. Or even hear you again soon, because you can't see a podcast. My brain's somewhere else. All right. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.